Hang on. Was that to me, Brenda? You got to hit record, or do you want me to?
Oh, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and welcome. My name is Brenda Rogers and this is
Tory von Bergen.
And this is Staples for a Nourishing Kitchen based on the Weston A. Price Foundation principles, which we're going to share a lot with you tonight. And Tory's gorgeous kitchen. So it's so lovely to have an insight into another woman's kitchen, isn't it? My name is Brenda Rogers and I'm the organiser of these events. We usually have something quarterly to bring to you these nutritional principles that are really making a big difference to people around the world and that are somewhat controversial or politically incorrect. And so we hope that you're really excited. I am a naturopath and live in the Hills district in Sydney, and it's just wonderful to actually be sharing this information and connecting with other people who've been doing it a lot longer than I have, which is the case for Tory. So I'm going to give you a little bit of basic information first. So I'm going to bring some slides up and then Tory is going to introduce herself after that, give you a little bit of an idea of how she's come to this, and then we're going to get cracking into some kitchen demonstrations. And you want to have your notepad ready because
definitely we're going to move fast. We're going to get a lot done.
Yes, and some of the information you will get in an email, a follow-up email, especially if you've registered for this event during 2020. COVID 2020. If you're watching this way down the track, then that won't be the case. But anyway, let's get started. I'm going to bring up the slides for you. Fantastic. So the lady who really is the inspiration for bringing this information to us is a lady called Sally Fallon, and I'm using some of her slides to show you some of the background and history from a pictorial perspective. And here's Tory, who is, as she will introduce to you, a mother of three, a nutritionist, and co-owner of the Billabong Retreat. So she'll introduce more about that in a little while. Please make note that this is just information for educational purposes, and nothing that we're showing here is meant to be diagnosis. And of course, if you are here because you have family members who are ill or kids, you know, of course, a lot of you are here because you're mums and you've got kids that are struggling.
Or endlessly hungry.
Hungry all the time, which is an important sign that we were going to tell you about later. Or yourself, maybe you have a chronic illness. Please don't delay medical care or seek a professional. If it's not a medical professional, maybe it's a naturopath or a complementary medicine practitioner, or maybe it's both. So we just want to encourage you to be responsible about that. All right. So what is a healthy diet? It's really, really confusing out there. Is it a vegetarian diet? Is it juicing? Is it food combining? Is it paleo? Is it keto? What else is out there?
Blood type diet.
Blood type diet.
Vegetarian, vegan.
Yeah.
Meat only diet.
Carnivore diet. That's one I've learned about recently. Only meat.
GAPS diet.
Yeah.
So South Beach diet. It's endless.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the official, what we get from the institutions like the health foundations, the heart foundations, the diabetes foundations, and any kind of
FDA
support groups, the American versions of all of that, the medical profession. It can be super, super confusing. And we want to bring you some information that's really based on real wisdom, law, as you call it, L-O-R-E, backed up with a tremendous amount of science. It all started with this guy, Weston A. Price, who was a dentist, actually. And that might sound a little bit strange right now, but we'll show you how that relates back to food and well-being as we go along. Now, he was around, you know, not quite 100 years ago, and he and his wife really traveled the world and visited all these isolated,
non-industrialized
communities,
communities,
traditional cultures and communities. And he was fascinated with their amazing health. No dental caries, no degenerative disease, all beautiful and slim, and so on. So we're going to show you some of those images and some of the information that he because back then it was kind of not, nutrition wasn't really a thing. He was like one of the first people.
Well, disease was coming in around then too. He was wondering why he was starting to see this in his practices. So he wanted to make it his life's work to understand how the most healthiest cultures in the world. And he went traveling around the world to find out who the healthiest cultures in the world were and what they were eating.
Yeah. So we're going to show you some of those. The first one that he went to was a remote village in Switzerland. And he sat down all the members of this village and asked them, you know, with the translator, told them what he was trying to do and asked their permission to research them. And he did that again and again and again with cultures around the world. What he found, there was something unique about this village, wasn't there?
It had one track into the community, and they just carried salt only. So they were really eating what they could only they were really eating what they could only farm.
Yeah, and grow for themselves. Yeah. So that's important because that means they had no packaged, industrialized,
absolutely,
modern foods, right?
Yeah.
So what he found, you can see here in the images, he took lots of photos of their teeth. You can see they've got gorgeous teeth here, no dental caries. They had a few actually, but it was like he had to go kind of like 1 more, 2 more, 3 more before he found one. It was really quite rare. And you can see from the kids standing there with their bare feet. If you look up really close, they've got beautiful bone structure. They're not feeling the cold, even though it's up in Switzerland. They've got no shoes on. And the actual traditional diets really helped people regulate their temperatures, which is something that we kind of don't really have so much these days. You can see here, this is actually sourdough bread, and it's significant because the traditional cultures really knew how to prepare grains so they didn't cause gut issues. And gut issues are epidemic now these days, especially in kids. And it has a lot to do with how we're not preparing our foods, we're not preparing them properly. And Tori's going to show you with beans, right?
Yeah.
A little bit later about that as well. So this big piece of bread was hung on a hook and allowed to culture for at least 2 weeks. And that was a fairly common thing in traditional cultures. Then modernized Swiss, they had lots of tooth decay. And this he found to be consistent across all the cultures that he researched. You can see here the Alaskans, their gorgeous white faces, the little baby's got a little sour face.
Completely gorgeous.
Totally healthy with their largely seal blubber diet.
High fat, saturated fat diets.
And then the modernized Alaskans, again, tooth decay. And that's just one generation. If you go into the next generation and the next generation, you're starting to get a whole stack of other things: degenerative disease, obesity, infertility. Exactly, yeah. Seal oil was a big part of the Eskimo Alaskan diet, and that's something that you're going to elaborate on, the vital role of animal fats and sacred foods,
of which we have in our family. I'll share them with you.
Can't wait. You'll see here, this is actually fish eggs, and these fish eggs there were in the, you're talking about sacred foods, right? That tell us about that.
Price found that each community had particular sacred foods that they would give to the man and the woman pre-conception, and then through pregnancy, and then also with the child, a baby and the child, and continuing on into the life. So they would move heaven and earth to obtain these sacred foods, and that's what I do too, Brenda.
Well, they really had a sense of nurturing the next generation and the generation after that, didn't they?
And they weren't aware of why they did it. They just knew that the wisdom was passed on down through generations, and that's just what they did for pure health.
So I'm going to show you a few more. Here's beautifully healthy, regal, dignified Native Americans. You notice again the broad structure. That's based on the teeth. The teeth create the space in the head for the sinuses, for the brain, and so on.
For proper breathing.
Yeah, 100%. So just by way of summary, the teeth, this is why it's important that Dr. Weston A. Price, why he was a dentist, or why that's relevant to this, because what he found is that when you have straight teeth, what that indicated in your body was plenty of room in your head, which we were just talking about for your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your breathing apparatus.
Yeah, proper sinuses. And the high dental arches, and there were no dentists and there were no doctors in these communities.
Yeah. And how many kids these days, or adults as well, have sinus problems and ear problems, and some of it has to do with the structure of the head. They had good skeletal and bone and muscle development, keen eyesight and hearing late into life. They had all their organs functioning super, super well. Positive aspect, they weren't moody.
Yeah, they're no cranky children. Actually, he said that the babies didn't cry. Actually, he said that they had an incredibly gentle disposition.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then childbirth was much easier. And then you can see on the other side of the screen what happens when the teeth are crowded and the face has narrowed. There's compromised space, poor development, poor eyesight, poor function of organs, and mood problems, and much more difficulty in childbirth. And that's certainly the case these days with the number of emergency cesareans and so on. So I'm going to just whiz through a few more photographs so you can see where he researched. The South Sea Islanders he looked at as well. You can see there the primitive pre-Western food, beautiful, beautiful teeth and high arches, and then the modernized with all the cavities and the lost teeth. You can also see on this screen the narrow faces. This is a telltale sign of nutrient deficiency.
It's right there. It's right there.
And then he also came to Australia and studied the Aboriginals, and you can see they are looking gorgeous and healthy, great teeth, no cavities, no lost teeth. And then the women as well. You can see the three photographs there on the left are modern women, and the lady on the top right, she has just gorgeous teeth, and that was a more primitive photo. Then the next generation, and I like that you pointed out that they actually look unhappy. So that you'll see the narrowing of the faces, the sinking of the cheekbones, much more difficulty in breathing and so on.
Yeah.
Also, Africa, he studied a lot of the cultures in Africa. You can see here, beautiful, happy teeth. And then African modern foods.
This is just one generation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when they weren't following their usual diets, the usual community diets that they had, so when they gave up what they were previously eating and started to eat wheat, sugar, flour, the things that were slowly brought into these isolated communities previously.
Yeah, a bit sad really. And I just wanted to finish off on this slide here, because one of the concerns that people have about eating more fat in their diet, and this diet can be quite rich in fat. I know that I've been eating the cream and the egg yolks, and it can feel like, oh no, this surely can't be right. But Dr. Price's research showed, you can see there on the left side, that herders, this is from the African studies, herders mainly ate animal foods. They had no tooth decay, and they were very tall and slender, just like you. And then the hunter-gatherers ate a little bit more seed and other things. They had no tooth decay also, and were tall, but a little bit bulkier, but more muscular. And then the agriculturalists, where the grains came in, they were eating mostly plant foods. They had some tooth decay, but they were short and
Chubby.
That's hidden behind my screen. So you don't have to worry. When you start to eat more fats in the food, in your diet, your appetite decreases and a whole lot of changes happen. So I'm sure you'll explain that a little bit more. So that's it. That final photograph shows you the modern boy, the narrow face, and then the traditional boy with the widened face. And that can be corrected actually in one generation when people adopt this diet. So that's the theory.
Well done, Brenda.
That's the theory part of today. Now I'd like to introduce to you Tory. And would you mind sharing a little bit of how you discovered, or how you came to come across this way of living?
This diet, yeah, it is actually a way of living. That's right, Brenda, and it's a way to teach as well. And I certainly have discovered that this way of life has given me, particularly, and now I'm passing it on to my children, far better health than I had previously. So my journey to health actually started with a pretty steady decline into foggy head and fatigue. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety and fibromyalgia and autoimmune diseases and all of these sort of things. And I actually just knew that that wasn't the case. I knew that there was something else that I could fix, and I had no choice actually but to get on with it. We were running a business. I had twins, and then I had another little girl. I was doctor hopping, and then eventually, over it's probably decades, I have used this diet to get back to my deep nutrition and health and vibrant health. I have more energy now than I've had since I was probably 9 or 10, when I was listening to Diet Dogma and decided never to eat fat again. I remember sitting in the back of my mum and dad's car, hearing the latest news that butter was pretty much going to kill you, fats were going to kill you, and I decided never to eat them again. I probably didn't actually eat them till I was, it could be 25 or 26. And I think there's a lot of stories out there like this. I was in a pretty bad way. So thank goodness I never gave up, and I found the Weston Price Foundation, and I haven't looked back since. It's taken me quite a while to adopt many of the practices and principles of the Weston Price Foundation, because it is so different to what we're used to. But now I embrace it wholeheartedly.
Can I just say something about that as well?
Yeah.
So you've been doing it how long?
I suppose over 10 years.
Well, I've been doing it for about a year or a year and a bit now. And you do have to be really patient with yourself. So, I just started with introducing more butter. But it's been amazing. I've just persisted and gradually added another thing and another thing. So I just encourage you, even though some of this might sound a little bit overwhelming when we go through it, we're going to show you ways that you can continue the conversation after this so that you can stay on track, because you do have to be committed and patient with yourself. So thanks for sharing that, because that's really important.
I think there's just a juggernaut of misinformation out there, and the foundation has been so good because they really have paved a way through that. So I'm so thankful, and that's why I became a chapter leader a couple of years ago, a year ago.
And a member, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to show you, this is the book that Weston Price wrote, called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's a pretty tough read, but I think, but underneath it says a comparison of primitive and modern diets and their effects. And that's really what he did. He compared the primitive diets and the modern diets and how that implicated us. And I can see that out there today. There is so much, there's so much lack out there, and it's really creating disease.
So if there's nutritionists, and there are nutritionists, naturopaths and others watching, then that's a really great book to get hold of and have a look at. Now on that, can you just share with us what you see because you're a mum, you're at the school, you're around, you're at sport, you're at soccer or whatever. You're talking about lack being out there. How does that look? What can people see?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of there's chronic disease that the doctors don't really have any answers for. There's a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of autoimmune. There's a lot of broken bones. There's a lot of lacking in fats. There's a lot of people still that are concerned and worried that putting saturated fats in their diets is bad. There's a stigma around these kind of things still, and no one's really talking about it. There's a lot of people that are still using, the PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. They're the nasty 8. Corn oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, there's sunflower, safflower, soy oil, there's grapeseed oil, and rice bran oil. Yeah, so no one's really talking about these. They're so inflammatory.
Yeah.
Should we get on? Because we've got quite a lot to do today, and I can't wait to get on, Brenda, and show this. So it's really a demonstration of how you can bring some of this wisdom and some of this old law into your kitchen. I'm not living on a farm. This is a modern kitchen. I need to go to the shops, but this is how you can do it. And even if you incorporate one of these things, change one of these things, you'll really find benefits for your family. So I'm just going to go to my pots.
All right, come on over.
So
tell us what you got there.
So these are cannelloni beans, and I've actually been soaking them for 48 hours, Brenda.
In just water?
In just water with a little bit of apple cider vinegar. You can use lemon juice or whey.
And why do you put that in?
Well, you see, all grains and seeds need to be partially fermented because they've got phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors, which causes a real problem for digestion.
Farty.
Well, it actually can be more. It's actually more than that. I think all of these communities used to soak their grains. You used to see baskets of grains and seeds and nuts soaking down by the river or in somebody's home space, soaking for days. And it also increases B vitamins. Yeah. It increases the B vitamins in the grains, nuts and seeds as well. So partially fermenting, it releases and neutralizes the phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors for much better digestion. So I really do this at home. It's really important. Yep. I do it with quite a lot of grains. I do it also with flours as well, and I'll demonstrate that later.
Because one of the principles of this diet is that it's nutrient dense, right? Which is not just eating foods that like organic or good nutritious food, but giving your body the best chance to digest the nutrients and have them go into the body rather than...
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to help assimilate the nutrients into the body. So all cultures did this, and I think we can find now when our sourdough bread is fermented, people are sprouting so many grains for loaves of bread these days. I think people are really understanding this principle, which is actually the principle of proper preparation. That's what the Western Price Foundation call it. It's the principle of proper preparation.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, with my beans, my recipes are just foolproof, and you guys can of course have my recipes. But really, after I've soaked these, I get them on the stove. I put in my tomato passata, and I also put in my the passata and the puree there. So these are the simple ingredients that are going in. I throw in a bit of maple syrup because beans need a little sweet. I'm actually going to put in a splash of tamari for richness and saltiness. I mean, I'm making these beans, probably once a month, and I make so much because this is about cooking in bulk, Brenda.
Yeah.
I need some time away from the kitchen too after this, and this can create next week a much easier week for me, and the week after a much easier week. So this is a gorgeous molasses. It's a little sweet and it's a little tart too.
It's rich in minerals, right?
It's rich in minerals. It's part of the sugarcane plant. It also can be from beets. So what else will I put in there? Well, you know, this is where I might add some of the secret ingredients for health. I'll just give that a stir.
So is this baked beans that you're making, like a breakfast?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of these, you know, family-friendly meals that the kids will eat. And if you cook this, like I'm showing, it will taste like the canned beans. It will taste like what the kids will expect, but so much richer in health-giving nutrients. It's really exciting. Like we actually can use it. We'll have this as a breakfast or a snack, but mostly it's great for a brekkie with some scrambled eggs, of course, with butter. I will put in some other fats with this as well. And I'll do that now. I just wanted to show you that I will put in a spoon or two of lard in there.
Why do you do that?
Well, I'm going to get to my fats in a bit. I really want to talk to you about fats, but it's really high in activators. It's really high in the fat-soluble activators, which Price found was so important for these communities for their health. I'll also add a heap of butter to this, but not until the end. One of my other secret ingredients will be some broth that I've made earlier, some bone broth. This is just beef bone broth. You know, everybody knows about broth these days, or most people do. And this was actually really gelatinous until the weather got to it. But I'm going to pour a little bit of the broth in there. That's really great for our gut health. So it heals the little epithelial lining of the intestines.
So it's making food medicinal, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Hippocrates said, you know, in 500 BC, and he was right, he says all disease begins in the gut. So we always need to be looking after our gut health, as we know. So this is just a little bit of paprika. Slosh it in there. I'm actually going to add some 5-spice. I love Chinese 5-spice, and it gives this recipe such a gorgeous flavour. And then I'm going to cheat right here, Brenda, and I'm going to put in some really nice jarred chunks of garlic. Quite a lot. Give that a stir. So as we can see, I'm just cooking in bulk, you know. So I've got my fats in there and I've got my broth in there, those life-giving ingredients. I'm going to add heaps of salt because we need salt in our diet. And I'm going to add, did I say broth? I did. I'm just going to put the lid on that for a minute, fire it up.
Do you use the Celtic sea salt?
Yeah, sure. I try to use salts from Australia. I try not to import them. So yeah, this is just a beautiful Australian sea salt, sort of grey in colour, full of minerals. And I might just add a splash of apple cider vinegar. I'll do that in a minute. I'm going to put the lid on. I will show you how that looks. I've got one that I made before. And I will show you how that looks, because when you cook it down for a good few hours, it really becomes a rich, delicious dish. Now, because we're cooking in bulk, I might do this on a Monday or a Sunday when I'm not at work. And this is another one of our family favourites, Brenda. And I really wanted to show you guys this tonight because it's the age-old bolognese, but we can turn it into a mineral-rich powerhouse just by adding some of these things that I'm going to tell you about. So you can use your bolognese recipe. You can use mine. I'm more than happy to send it if you want it. Mine's pretty foolproof again. But I always put mince in it. I always put lamb mince or beef mince and pork mince, or a mix of the three. And I never choose the lean cuts. I always have the fatty cuts because the fats are so important. So I've just been cooking this down today, and I've actually added, you know, a few veggies. I've just added whatever I've got, as we do in our bolognese. I've just added whatever's left over in the fridge, which was 3 huge carrots and a zucchini and a little bit of cauliflower. So that's just been cooking down.
How long did you put it on for?
Oh, look, that's just been on for a few hours. You don't necessarily need to do that, but I have today because I'm just making these dishes together. I'm going to add the passata as well. See how you can do these together?
That's a big pot.
It is a big pot. So I'm probably going to make about 8 litres, and I do. And this translates into probably three Pyrex containers. Now, one's going to be for nachos with avocado and sour cream, and one's going to be for lasagna. You can use whatever pasta sheets. I usually use a rice one or a quinoa one or a spelt one, and one's going to be for spaghetti bolognese, yay, with any sort of pasta that you like. But these dishes, cooking in bulk and then adding particular ingredients like the fats, and this other one I'm going to show you in a minute, is going to make them a really power-packed, nutrient-dense, ancient wisdom law meal that Weston Price would have said he would have been proud of us. So this is tick. So this is how we can bring these things into our diet. I'm just mad on saturated fat. So when I decided that I was going to eat a lot more fat, I just felt so much better. So the Weston Price Foundation have so much good information on their website for saturated fats. I really want to focus today on the fat-soluble activators that Price talks about. And I think this is probably the most misunderstood principle for the, well, it's kind of difficult. I mean, because I think we've been a little bit brainwashed. We've been sold snake oil, so to speak, with these polyunsaturated, beautiful golden oils that we see in the supermarket, which have actually been bleached and are very inflammatory. But the real fats we need are the ones that have helped us evolve, the ones that we've been actually consuming for millions of years, the ones that help our brains to grow. So all of these fats are found in animal products such as pastured free range, pastured eggs, and cows grazing on really rich mineral grasses. That's what Price noted, that the grasses were rich, glacial mountains, fast growing grass. Is that making any sense?
Not in Australia.
Yeah, no, but we do have a lot of pastured cattle. So, you know, any dairy in that regard, fatty fish as well, oils, but it's the organ meats of animals as well. So who is eating organ meats? I mean, I think a lot of these fats, people just aren't eating anymore. They're frightened by them, and they don't know how to use them. Organ meats are just icky, and they certainly were for me as well, until I started incorporating them into the diet of myself and my family.
I remember when I was growing up having crumbed lamb's brains.
Yeah.
And that was odd. Interesting texture. Same with kidneys. We'd have steak and kidney.
Yeah.
Mum would make ox tongue
as
a lunch meat.
Wow. See, it was just one generation back, and then now we're not actually eating these things. Yeah. So the fat-soluble nutrients are vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin K2. So vitamin A has kind of been demonized. You probably haven't heard that much, except that we've been told that it causes birth defects. Vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin, oh my God, we've heard so much about it. Everybody's on vitamin D supplements. And then you've probably heard absolutely nothing about the amazing K2, which is Price's Activator X. This is his big thing. And this is the nutrient that formed all that incredible dental structure. This is the nutrient that gave them this robust physiology. You know,
We can see you now.
It's a shame.
Sorry for the technological dropout there,
Oh no.
everyone.
That's okay, we can see you.
That was the last thing that you heard.
Are we on?
And that was, that'll help summarize things as well. So, guys up the back there, can you tell us where we left off?
I think we were talking about fat-soluble activators.
Yes.
Yeah?
So
Yeah. We were talking about fat-soluble activators. Sorry, everybody. We were talking about vitamin A deficiency, so thyroid disorders, sexual reproduction disorders. We've got vision problems, night blindness. Oh gosh, its limit is reachless. And you really, if you don't have enough vitamin A in your diet, you're really going to find it difficult to stay well.
and I've also learned recently that because people are taking vitamin D supplements, which are synthetic vitamin D,
Yeah.
that D and A are meant to be together, and so they're
Absolutely.
becoming A deficient because they're having too much D.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
huge problem. So we've been given thousands of units of vitamin D in a synthetic form, and it just doesn't work like this. This is about food. Food works synergistically in the body. We need vitamin A together. They're vital hormones, and they signal vitamin K. And you only get this in the whole food, and you're only getting this in animal fats. And if you're not getting these, you're not going to assimilate any other nutrient in the body. So it's really important. Like if you're using a unit of vitamin D, you need a unit of vitamin A. So taking supplements, especially in large amounts, is going to deplete stores of the other nutrient.
Create imbalance.
Yeah, absolutely. But vitamin K is, look, vitamin D, we know it's bone health, it's immunity,
Mood.
Yeah, absolutely. And K2 is the one that we were talking about, wasn't it? It's Price's activator. I mean, this is just astonishing. Like, I can't believe that we don't talk about this. So this is where K2 releases a protein called osteocalcin, which moves calcium into our bones and away from soft tissues like the heart, the arteries, and joints. And we all want calcium away from the heart,
Because it's a hardening mineral.
the
right?
arteries and the joints, and we want it in our bones. And this is what Price witnessed with the robust health and the incredible arches. So it wasn't until Professor Chris Masterjohn, did his science amazingness that he inferred the Western Price Foundation of actually that the activator X is K2. So then the osteocalcin then moves calcium into the bones, and the osteoblasts, or the bone cells, make these really dense, heavy bones. So I've noticed that my children are long and slim, and I've noticed that their legs are heavy. Their bones are dense, and I've been watching my son's tooth, which was moving in this direction, actually shift around, which is incredible. And look, Brenda, I don't like buying supplements. Firstly, because of the plastic that they come in, but I will buy a food supplement called emu oil, and I will buy cod liver oil, because here we've got fat soluble activators A and D in their food form, and we've got K2 in emu oil. And this actually, Barrymore, is the highest form of K2 probably in a food in the world. Emu oil has the highest form of K2. So, it's absolutely fascinating too that if we're not getting enough saturated fats in our diet, our bodies actually make saturated fats through a process called lipogenesis, but it's a really rudimentary pathway to make saturated fats. And it will also make you crave carbohydrates because we make them out of carbohydrates. So not only do you stay on this cycle of craving carbohydrates and feeling guilty and adding to metabolic dysfunction because you're not eating enough fats, and then you go and eat more carbohydrates, it's just this loop that so many of us can get stuck in, and really through all the dieting, we just don't know why. So These are all the fats that I just adore. So this is from some bacon in the morning that I cook for the kids. I make my ghee, which is really simple. That's actually some beef tallow. It's got a little bit of from a beautiful slow cooked beef that I cooked the other night. Had some tomato in it, and then we've got some rendered lard there, which is really high in vitamin D. Lard is really high in vitamin D, but fats are incredible, but really I want to move along to this other sacred food because we don't have all night. And I really hope that too many of you don't get too squeamish when I talk about this. It's not something that I ever thought that I would be cooking with, but here it is. This is a little jar of chicken livers, and I've actually put them through a high power blender, a Thermomix, but you can put them through a Vitamix or whatever. So it's about 500 grams of organic chicken livers that I got from the health emporium that does really nice organic chicken livers. So here's my bolognese just bubbling away. I've got some lard in there. I've got some ghee in there. I will add a load of butter in there. See, I can interchange the fats. I don't have a problem with that. I've put my bone broth in there as well. Bone broth just gets added to everything these days. So really this liver, it doesn't really smell like anything, Brenda. You know, most people go, oh, but it really doesn't have any unusual smell. And when it's like this, it just looks like tomato sauce because we're not shouting out to the family. We're eating offal. We're not disclosing this every time we do it. So I'm just going to pour it in and you'll see how it just blends with the rest of the meal.
So you do about 500 grams per,
I think
per 8 litres or something.
Yeah, look, it's just by taste, really. I think I'd start less, and the more garlic and the more tomato you add, the more it disguises the very mild flavour, in fact, anyway. But the thing is, with liver, it is the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. It is the most B12, zinc, a really highly usable form of iron for anemia. So, you know, CoQ10 and K2. So really, this is something that we can incorporate into a family meal that just tastes exactly the same.
So my understanding is that liver was prized by traditional cultures and often fed, again, to, you know, couples who were preconception and during pregnancy because it's so rich in
vitamin A, for reproduction, for birth, for our hormones, for thyroid.
So do you think that the anti-saturated fat movement has impacted our fertility?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think we really need to start talking about this, and I think we really need to start talking about the oils that have been replaced. Have you seen The Oiling of America?
No.
So it's just a 2-hour. It's a 2-hour documentary by Mary Enig, who is the president of the Western Price Foundation, and it's spoken by Sally Fallon-Norell. And it's just the most incredibly informative understanding of why from the sort of 1940s and 50s, or just at the turn of the century, started to eat these oils, started to replace the oils, the fats that we were eating for so long with these
margarine and
with the polyunsaturated fatty acids, so the nasty 8 that we talked about before.
I just find it so interesting that they're called vegetable oils. They've got a very nice, you know, branding, because then we think they're actually healthy, but they're not. They're not healthy, and they're not even seed oil. They're not even vegetable oils. They're not
vegetable oils. They're industrial seed oils, and they've been through a process of maybe 20 to 30 different things that they have to do in deodorization and bleaching before they end up on our shelves. Yeah, so I've added some more tomato sauce. I'm going to put some salt in there, and I'm just going to let that bubble away for a little bit more because we've got some more amazing things to get on with.
Yes, let's do it.
So we're moving back over here because this is one of the other life-giving. Sure.
Yeah. Let's transition. We'll take a few questions.
What brand of emu oil and cod liver oil?
Well, this is very special. This one, it's the Barrymore emu oil. So I was usually just using one called Walkabout emu oil, and it was from America.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually farmed emus in Australia, and then the branding is Walkabout, and it's an American company, and this is actually the same company. You can find really good information on the website for Walkabout emu oil. They don't have much on the website for Barramil because they're really just farming these emus in and drawing the oil out in a really specific scientific way. I just use Arctic Nordic Naturals cod liver oil because they also press the oil out in a really wholesome way.
So we'll give you that information in the follow-up email as well. You've promised me you're going to give me the list of things that you're recommending.
I will, definitely.
And can I just say that cod liver oil, not oil, oils ain't oils, if you're kind of old enough to remember that. A lot of poorly manufactured cod liver oil has had synthetic D added, and I'm not sure about the A, maybe the A as well, because it's sensitive and in the production process it gets destroyed. So do make sure that you get a really quality brand that hasn't got the exact amount of vitamin D in it, because then you know they've standardized it, they've added it. So yeah, questions?
We've got what about olive oil? Would you classify that as an industrial seed oil with that process?
What about olive oil? Is that a seed oil and is it processed?
In these communities, they didn't actually have that much olive oil, but it's a really good oil and it's great for salads, but it doesn't have vitamin A and vitamin D and vitamin K in it.
So it's in the Mediterranean diet though, which a lot of people are following as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good oil, but it doesn't have these activators in it. It doesn't have A and D and K in it.
And it's, a lot of people use it for cooking. It's not meant to be heated because it is sensitive to heat. So it's a nice thing to add on salads because it's a liquid oil. A lot of these oils and fats are,
yeah, they're
that
solid.
You're talking about, they're solid.
They're solid at room temperature, and that actually means that their chemical structure stays in place. So when you're actually ingesting these saturated fats, the chemical structure stays in place. When you're ingesting these other oils, they actually break off into little units, which causes lesions, it causes the inflammation. Completely different structure in these fats, saturated fats. That's why they're so good for you. They've got little tight junctions. So, right, what I'm doing here. So this is the gorgeous main ingredient of our family smoothie. And this is just the most healthy, life-giving, energy-giving smoothie. So the main ingredient, well, the big star, well, I think the big star, the healthy component of it, the nutrient, life-giving component of it, is the milk kefir. Now,
so say that again slowly.
Milk kefir.
K-E-F-I-R.
Yeah,
right.
so
it smells divine.
It does. It's just like a yogurt. It's like a soured milk or a yogurt. And it's a gift from Russia, like many fermented drinks. It's little cauliflower looking grains, they're called. And this is just a colony of bacteria. Now they're alive. These little grains are actually alive, in a sense, and they soak up the sugar in the milk because I'm feeding it milk, and their byproduct is healthy bacteria and something called butyrates, which is also really healthy for the gut. So I think I'll just leave it at
So you can buy kefir, how do you say it?
You can, yeah.
In the supermarket. Do you think it's
Look,
okay, or have they done something to it?
What brand, but I think these things are always better when you start from scratch. Sure, you could give it a go. I think there are some nice brands out there now. Maybe I've seen a Moorbrook Farm one, but I haven't actually tried them. So what's left in here after I've strained out the little grains is the gorgeous soured milk, just smelling like yogurt there. So our family smoothie, which the kids often have maybe with the baked beans if I've got enough time in the morning, is the kefir. This is one that I've done earlier. So I'll put like 2 cups in of my milk kefir, and I can use this in so many different recipes. So all of these things that I'm using are so interchangeable. And I've got some frozen berries here. I do actually always use organic frozen berries just because they're really high in pest. They're the most sprayed fruit.
They're on the Dirty Dozen list.
The Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're top of the Dirty Dozen strawberries. So
such a shame.
yeah, we really don't want to be eating. So there we have the berries in there. I'll splash some maple syrup in there. And then I'm going to put a big chunk, a big tablespoon of coconut oil, another saturated fat, but high in lauric acid. So lauric acid is a little bit, it's a medium chain triglyceride, which is actually similar to breast milk, and it has these antiviral and antibacterial properties to it. It's also the fat that's going to go in my smoothie. I will then...
So it also has, I understand, caprylic acid, which is antifungal and really great for candida.
Candida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Does it taste coconutty when you drink it though?
Not in that. It really doesn't. A little bit sometimes. So I'm actually going to put 2 raw egg yolks. We've got our essential fatty acids in the egg yolks, your EPA and your DHA. So I never put any of the whites in there. It's really hard to digest. It's a protein that just won't even go down the sink. It's not going to be digestible when it's raw. And it's the yolks that I'm interested in anyway. They've just got everything in them, including A and D as well.
And they taste really creamy.
Oh, so creamy. This is the best smoothie. So you can put anything else you want in this smoothie if you've got any potions and powders and things that you usually like to add. This is just a really good starter. So we could actually add a cup of bone broth in here as well.
Really?
I'm going to, yeah, we could. I'm actually going to put a little bit of liquid in there. Put my maple syrup. We could put a bit of bone broth in there.
I don't add any sweetener to mine.
Yeah, you don't have to. I think I'm just so used to making it for the kids. So I'm going to make a little bit of noise because I really want to show you how this looks and show you how it tastes, Brenda.
Just watch the lid.
Oh, I don't think I can.
So I use a variation of this for my adrenal fatigue clients, but 6 to 12 eggs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow. It really is an energy power-packed smoothie. You could... Okay, I think it probably needs about 30 to 40 seconds, but that's all we're going to give. So I don't want to make too much noise for everybody out there. I do. Look, not all the time. I haven't done the berries fully though.
What do you do with the egg whites? Do you make?
Oh, look, a pavlova at Christmas with lashings of cream. Look, so I just wanted to get back to the kefir as well because it's a really versatile probiotic drink. So I will often also make pancakes for the kids with buckwheat flour. But the night before, I will soak my 1.5 cups of buckwheat flour with 1.5 cups of kefir as well. And in the morning, the flour has slightly fermented. It's released all its nutrients and it's chewy and delicious when I finally make it as a pancake. I fry my pancakes in ghee and coconut oil and serve them up with some maple syrup, lemon, or some of those berries.
Yum, yum, yum.
So good.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For our audience? Buckwheat is not a wheat, right?
It's a seed.
It's a seed, so it's gluten-free.
Yeah, it's gluten-free and it's full of minerals and vitamins again, chromium and other amazing things, and doesn't have anything to do with gluten or wheat flour. It's really nutty and delicious, and the kids are they're into it. They're absolutely into it. So
and so gluten and is one of those biggies to avoid if you have gut issues, really, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is, and particularly celiac. But you can manage to do some gut healing, and you know, it starts with really nurturing the ecosystem of bacteria that we have in our gut. We have billions of bacteria residing in our intestinal wall, and we've discovered now that, you know, they have 150 times the DNA that we do. So we're actually more microbe.
Yes.
We're actually more microbe.
Totally
So
dependent on them.
we're totally dependent on them for everything, and particularly our immune system. I mean, that starts from the beginning. They help to shape our immune system. They resist pathogens, and they also help the immune system, will tell the immune system how to tolerate the food we're eating. So we really need to look after this. And cultures around the world in these communities, these isolated pre-industrial communities, they all had fermented foods. You know, ketchup, it used to be fermented.
Wow.
Yeah, even ketchup used to be fermented.
I found a recipe for that actually in one of those books that you're going to show us later.
So kefir as well, it can be turned into cheese using a muslin cloth. It can also be used to create a delicious lemon sherbet ice cream. I add it to dressings, creamy sauces with avocado. Tonight I'll add it with the guacamole to the nachos and the bolognese. It also, I add it to a delicious cherry ice cream too. I really don't mind just drinking it straight as well. But we really need to start to incorporate some of these fermented foods into our diet. I mean, a lot of people, there's a big craze of sauerkraut, which is great at the moment.
Some people need to implement it slowly though, right? Because it can be
true. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. So these things need to be incorporated really slowly, sometimes just a teaspoon at a time. And I suppose with milk kefir, maybe I'll get a question about dairy intolerance. And so I know that a lot of people can tolerate milk kefir because all of the enzymes have been put back in by the process of fermentation. But yes, it's always suggested to start slow with fermented foods.
And I find you have to kind of know whether it's lactose or the protein really in the dairy that you're reacting to. And sometimes taking a good digestive enzyme or improving your digestive stomach function, particularly with maybe apple cider vinegar, or
some bitters.
Foods. Bitters.
Some Swedish bitters or apple cider vinegar can help create to build your stomach fire. So we can have a depleted digestive system from, antibiotics and the wrong food, from smoking, from proton pump inhibitors, from having gastric issues, so many things, from pesticides, from unfiltered water. So we also need to sometimes build our stomach fire, and then we find that perhaps we can digest these things a little better as well. Kombucha. So I couldn't not show you a little bit about kombucha. It's just so much fun, and really it's the soft drink of the 21st century. I mean, it has gone through the roof in sales. Coca-Cola have certainly got their mitts around it. But this is the traditional way of brewing kombucha. And I love how, it's I can put it in this little spout and then the kids will drink it down. I love to drink it. And then you have to wait for 5 days for it to ferment again after you've fed it. Now, it's really strange to promote a drink that is made from tea and sugar. But it's made from tea and sugar because the little life-giving symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, which is what this actually is. And I'll just pull him out here, and some of you might go, oh, yuck, oh, what is that? Yeah, what is that? But it's a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. It's sometimes called maybe a mushroom.
Yeah, SCOBY.
Yeah, and it creates these little tendrils. I think this brew is just about on its way. It's got a little bit of effervescence to it, and when it goes past its fermenting stage, it gets slightly acidic, but it's still really good for you. And it's another drink from the Uralic Mountains in Russia. So we have Russia to thank for the kefir and the kombucha. It's also a really detoxifying drink. So it's got components in it to help the liver detoxify. But most importantly, it's a delicious, refreshing drink. Let's have a taste, Brenda. I know you know what it tastes like.
I haven't tasted yours though.
You're doing this at home too.
And that there's something else over there that you looks similar.
Yeah, so you can use green tea instead of black tea. You can use honey instead of raw white sugar. And that SCOBY is slightly different. Cheers.
Cheers.
And called a Jun SCOBY. And it's just slightly different, but it will just ferment green tea and honey if that's what you prefer, or you have some sort of aversion to sugar or black tea.
So were you going to show us the beans you'd prepared earlier?
Yes, I can't wait. Yeah, so I had to cook the beans before because I really wanted to show you all how rich they look and how delicious they are. Sweet.
Cookbook coming.
There's so many more dishes I wish I could show you guys. And it's just like this diet or this way of life, it's just endless. There's so much to it. It's so much fun, and it translates, the application of it translates into health. So I'm sold. I've been doing this now for a long time, but every day I'm learning something new and enjoying it.
And what really I love is that it just tastes amazing. I don't know what the fat does to your taste buds, but it is grandmother's food on steroids. It's
really satisfying, and we know that our body, when we're having butter and broths and rich, delicious food, our family members, they all sit around the table and go, oh, you know, our bodies really know that this food is good for us. And you'll just start to lap it up as you cook like this. I mean, Sally Fallon-Morell from the foundation, she just loves butter. She says butter just makes everything taste good. She says her vegetables are a vehicle for butter and cream.
So we'd like to answer some questions. So we'll get to that in just a second. If you'd like to pop more questions in the chat for the girls to share with us. But before we do that, we've just got a little bit of information for you as our special attendees for today. And it's about becoming a member of the Weston A. Price Foundation, which is super cheap, but super valuable. So you've been a member probably a long time, right?
Yeah, I've been a member for nearly 10 years. And I think it's just $50 a year.
50 US, but we have a special offer of 40 US for a year, and you get those.
Yeah, that you get the journals. These journals are incredible. When they arrive in the mail, I just lap it up from page to page, and I can't believe that I'm so blessed with this information. They're so great. They're for scientists and doctors and also lay people. There's all sorts of things in there, all sorts of interesting information in there.
So an annual membership gets you one of these per quarter. And they have long articles in them. I had one recently that was on alcoholism and how to work with alcoholism. And then the next day I had an alcoholic client.
Yeah, just so good. And that's very much about introducing fats to them as well, because of the fats and the importance to brain health, and also the lack of B vitamins as well. So with alcoholics,
and the sugar cravings as well.
So when you're adding fats to your diets, you don't want nearly as much sugar, and you're not craving carbohydrates, including wine.
So if you're fascinated at all by this information, or you do have someone in your family that is struggling with their health, then I highly encourage you to make the investment. It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot of reward. So we'll give you more details of that in the follow-up email. And are there any questions? Yeah.
Well, was there any prep for the chicken livers before you split them?
What did you do with the chicken livers?
Yeah, so actually not. I'd actually just frozen them for 2 weeks. So I bought them fresh and organic. And then I put them in the fridge for a couple of weeks because that's what the foundation suggests. So that's what I did. That's all. I didn't have to do anything. I just put them straight into the blender.
Could you get non-organic?
Look, I think free range would be fine. I think you could, but
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't buy just plain store-bought. And I haven't actually seen any of them.
They're in
themselves.
Woolworths.
Sure, there
Yeah.
might be free range. Look, it might be interesting to talk to Ring Woolworths and see where they got them from.
Yeah. Because one thing I learned is that the liver doesn't store toxins. It helps you eliminate stuff. So they're not full of toxins.
Yeah, it's filtrated through.
Yeah. Another question.
What brand of lard do you use?
What brand of lard do you use?
I actually usually use my own bacon fat, but I did buy some beautiful rendered lard from Tassie Tallow. And you can get this from a beautiful online store, which is Western Price affiliated, called gpawholefoods.com. And they have all of these products. They're amazing. And they'll send it out within 48 hours. So that's rendered and it's good. And remember, it's high in vitamin D.
Well, you know, some of these things can be quite expensive. It can add up, but you must save on
on other, so there's some things that I won't compromise with, like particularly that butter. That is quite expensive. But then I'm going to buy really cheap cuts of meat for slow cooking, and I'm going to use this is a nose to tail way of cooking. This isn't about going to Woolworths and buying one chicken breast in a styrofoam container. This is about buying the whole chicken, even if you're just on your own. So you're getting 3 meals. You're eating the breast and the skin. You're cooking the bones for another meal. You're eating the whole thing, and that's a much cheaper way to understand this. This is sustainability, Brenda. This is moving forward for the health of the next generations.
So some people have a little bit of reservation about animals and you know, looking after animals.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's one of the things that we need to that's the elephant in the room as well.
Yes, true.
And I know that there's a position statement on that from the Western Price Foundation.
Yes.
But can you give us how you reconcile that as well for the vegans, I suppose? Yeah,
I mean, there's a beautiful book called Buddhism for Meat Eaters. So I've dived into that. This is a really big subject, and it's one that does fascinate me. There is nothing good about the suffering of animals, and none of us want that. But there is always a place for eating nose to tail, and this is a far better way for the planet and us to consume meat. We need to be consuming the best quality meat that we can, and probably less. This isn't a high protein diet. This is a very integral diet. It also has a lot of vegetables. It's just more about the fat. So when we're using animal fats, we're not eating so much of the protein as well. So I mean, there's lots of debate about this, and it's really fascinating. There's nothing, look, I think this is for another day, but it's a really interesting argument. I think monocropping and saving the world through vegetarianism isn't the answer either. I think small farming, like Polyface Farm, go and look up Polyface Farm on YouTube. I think really that farm is the way to go. Small farms where the animals are looked after and the crops are rotated. I mean, we don't live on farms, but if we can support farms like that, this is where we've got to move. This is where we've got to go.
Yeah.
Is there an oil that you would recommend for those who are vegetarian?
Well, definitely coconut oil as a saturated fat.
Yeah. Coconut. The question was the oils for someone who is more vegetarian.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've learned through Western Price is that no tribal or traditional culture was
Totally
vegetarian or vegan, which tells us something about the the health, I suppose.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they just couldn't be. Each food morsel had to be nutrient dense. They weren't spending their days chopping and preparing vegetables, so they just couldn't be vegetarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating question. Look, I just think this is just a deep drive now for humanity. I think we've gone so far off, and people are really suffering out there.
Yeah. Especially
So,
the kids.
especially the kids, you know, and there's so many incredible resources now. You know, the work of Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride and gut and psychology syndrome is just awe-inspiring. You know, she's healing these people through her diet, healing the gut, healing the broken junctions of the very thin epithelial wall of the gut lining. And she's written this book here, and her cookbook.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually not her cookbook, but it's for the GAPS diet. So it demystifies how to heal and how to cook as well. So,
and she's just released this last month the Gut and Physiology Syndrome book as well, which is for a whole other range of chronic conditions like autoimmune diseases. So, and she calls them all digestive disorders: autism, ADHD, schizophrenia, epilepsy. And you can see what happens if you don't eat a proper diet. The gut's not right, and then the toxins affect the brain. And
yeah, so also we now know that there's a gut axis to every organ in the body. There's even a gut eye axis. We have a microbiome in our eye. We do. So we really need to be nurturing ourselves with fermented foods.
Robin asks, would you suggest ditching my vitamin D supplement for cod liver and emu oil?
So let me repeat the question.
Yeah.
Robin asks, ditching her vitamin D supplement for cod liver oil and emu oil? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as a nutritionist, that's what I would prescribe, definitely. Yeah, and depending on how many units your doctor has you on of vitamin D, I would have a look at your vitamin A content in your diet and see if you can have a little deep dive into that yourself, and see if your vitamin A content is high enough for your vitamin D. That would be really interesting to see.
Also asking the name of the other cookbook that you were holding for.
Yeah, Heal Your Gut.
So Heal Your Gut is the GAPS, demystifying the GAPS diet, the gut and psychology syndrome diet from Natasha Campbell-McBride. Do we have enough time to get the ice cream on, or is that just not?
Yep, we've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Should we get the cherry ice cream on?
Yeah.
Or is it going to make too much noise?
No, our audience wants ice cream.
Do they do? Okay.
They're also loving you both together.
They're what?
They're loving you both together.
Loving us both together.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you.
So while you're doing that,
I'm just going to give the thermomix.
Are there any more questions?
Just there was one a little while ago about pancake batter. That's just an overnight fermentation.
Yeah, it's an overnight fermentation, and then in the morning I'll add 2 eggs and salt.
For the pancake batter. I made some breakfast pastries actually with sourdough rye chocolate pastries. It was just delicious. They don't look like the French ones in the French bakery, but they tasted really good. And grains kind of need to be minimised if you've got any gut issues. But
we might not have enough time to whiz this up because some more questions are coming in. But I don't want to make too much noise.
I'm just your time while you're getting ready.
But I just wanted to show you how I'm adding creme fraiche, which is a fermented cream, to just a packet of frozen strawberries. I'll add a scoop of my kefir, some lemon juice and maple syrup, and I'll whiz it up.
Can you say that again slowly?
I've just got some cherries in the Thermomix. I'm going to put a big chunk of creme fraiche and a spoonful of milk kefir. I'm going to add some lemon juice, a little bit of vanilla, and I'm going to whiz it up in the Thermomix, and it makes the creamiest, most beautiful cherry ice cream to have. It makes the creamiest, most beautiful cherry ice cream to have after our nachos. Actually, I'd really like to get the nachos out now. So yeah. I'm glad I've showed you that recipe, but I might just duck over there and get the nachos ready with the bolognese that I'd put the liver in.
All right, great.
I am, yes. I am, yes. I'm down in I'm down in
The question was, are
Warriewood.
you a practicing nutritionist, Tory?
Yes, I am. I'm down in Warriewood on a Thursday morning, and I teach ancestral health for families and women and men.
Wonderful.
So I'm just going to get the corn chips on, because I just want to show you how this looks at the end.
What corn chips do you use?
I'm just using an organic corn chip. I'm just making sure that they don't have any, they're not genetically modified, because I think a lot of people know that corn actually is. And it's an Australian made brand. So it's not coming from America where the corn is genetically modified. So this is a great family dinner. This is just the bolognese, and I'm going to have loads of this left for the lasagna and spaghetti bolognese over the next weeks, as well as the baked beans that I've made. So there we have that. I'm going to get my avocado out, and I'm going to just dab it on the top, and then that actually has some kefir in it as well. And then I've got this really gorgeous Baramba organic sour cream.
Where do you buy those?
I actually just get them in Harris Farm.
Okay.
Lots of things I do get in Harris Farm. And then I'm going to put the sour cream on top. You could make a salad if you wanted with this, with some apple cider vinegar and your olive oil, but you don't really need to. So I'll serve this up as a family meal with the cherry ice cream afterwards. This is a good Western price meal.
And looks divine. Yum. And what about the creme fraiche that you buy in Woolies? You think it'd be okay?
I think it would be okay. You know, I think a lot of the foods that you can buy, as long as they're whole foods from Woolies, I think it's fine. And we've just got to work with our, you know, with our home dollar.
Yeah, I know.
I think they are. And the butter from Woolies and supermarkets is actually really good as well, Brenda. It's got it's got high amounts of vitamin A or D, but just not necessarily as much as the vitamin K.
Yeah. I think we're almost coming to a close.
I think we are. It's just been so much fun. I'm just so happy that I can show you this, because I'm so passionate about the health of future generations. And I just want to say no to pharmaceuticals. And I want to say no to diet dogma. And this isn't about necessarily loving to cook. This is, or getting women back in the kitchen. This is a drive for future generations. And this is a revolution, Brenda.
Well, it's got me back into the kitchen, and I have absolutely loved that. You know, I grew up in the 70s. I didn't burn my bra, but I am pretty independent and all the rest of it. And I just love and adore turning my kitchen into a factory fermentation, you know, centre, and reconnecting with food and where it comes from, and going to the market. And that's me, where I've come to. But
I totally agree.
There's so many ways of being efficient, and planning is really, I suppose, essential too. So
yeah, we do have to think ahead a bit. But with every fibre of my being, I believe that every cent and every moment spent in the kitchen is worth it. And you will not believe how this can impact your family. So
yeah, totally agree.
Enjoy.
Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll just hang around a little bit. You can just hang out with us for a minute, or wander off. It's almost bedtime, I guess. I'm just going to stop the recording. Hold on a second.